Number 5 is still alive in Short Circuit 2, the sequel that carries on the adventures of everyone's favourite sentient childlike robot, Johnny 5. Released in 1988, this often forgotten sequel sees Johnny 5 arrive in the big city, where he is reunited with Ben and his new business partner Fred. But this fun jaunt into the metropolitan lifestyle gets tainted when some horrible grubby criminals learn of Johnny 5 and want him for their own selfish deeds, namely robbing some diamonds, where Johnny must literally fight to stay alive in this often overlooked sequel which continues the legacy of Johnny 5.
So it's time to head out to New York City as we explore 10 things that you didn't know about Short Circuit 2. So all you guys watching at home can be impressed and be all like, oh wow, that Minty sure does know a lot, so let's check it out.
Number 10, Steve Guttenberg regrets not starring in Short Circuit 2. So given that Short Circuit was a huge hit, naturally the studio and, well, everyone else involved wanted to get to work on a sequel and thus keep the Short Circuit gravy train rolling. And so, of course, there would have been a demand for the movie's main star, Steve Guttenberg, to return in his iconic role of Mutant Crosby. But sadly, Guttenberg turned the part down, supposedly due to the fact that there was no script available for him. So yeah, the lack of script put him off. However, it seems that Guttenberg must have really been a fan of Short Circuit 2, as he would go on to say that he actually regretted not starring in the movie. Also that very year, he turned down starring in Police Academy 5. So who knows, maybe at this stage of his career he was just over sequels. But then again, he was in Cocoon 2, so yeah. Number 9, the original director bailed too. So the first Short Circuit movie was directed by Saturday Night Fever and War Games director John Badham, and he was on board to direct Short Circuit 2, and he was part of the movie's early development. However, as the production went on, he left Short Circuit 2 to direct the action comedy movie Stakeout instead. I guess he felt there was more value in directing the buddy cop movie than returning to the world of Johnny 5. The director who took his place was Kenneth Johnson, who had previously created many classic TV shows, including V, The Bionic Woman, and The Incredible Hulk. Johnson described Short Circuit 2 as a growing up metaphor, in that sometimes you reach a certain age where you discover that people aren't what they seem, using the works of Italian-American director Frank Capra as an example of where he was going with Short Circuit 2.
But regardless, Short Circuit 2 lost its main star and director, so things really were not off to a good start. Still, the movie could at least get an Ali Sheedy, right? Well...
Number 8, Ali Sheedy isn't, but kind of is in the movie. So not only did Steve Guttenberg not return for Short Circuit 2, but neither did its other main star, Ali Sheedy, who played Stephanie Speck in the first film. Yeah, this really put Short Circuit 2 at a disadvantage. According to the website gizmodo.com.au, this was because Sheedy was, quote, deemed too expensive for the sequel. However, Sheedy does have a brief voiceover in Short Circuit 2, where we hear some brief audio of Sheedy's voice. I guess getting her to read some lines of dialogue was cheaper. So instead, the movie's main focus was now on the Indian scientist, Ben, played by Fisher Stevens. Something that upsets people in modern years and seems to be a talking point, with it being felt that this part hasn't aged well on the account that Fisher is white. He was a prominent character in the first movie, who is now a main character and even features on the movie's poster, as well as Michael McKean as a new character called Fred, who I guess is a good guy but is still kind of a douche. Yeah, look, to me, this movie really lacks the charm, likability, and chemistry of Steve Guttenberg and Ali Sheedy. Number 7, filming location. Despite being set in an unspecified American metropolis, Short Circuit 2 was filmed in the Great North itself, Canada, namely Toronto, which doubled for America. During the 80s, this was actually a common practice for movies that were set in American cities to actually be filmed in Canadian ones, on the account of the lower cost of filming in Canada. Something that has been pointed out is that despite being a US city, you can still see iconic Toronto landmarks in the background of some scenes. I guess having Short Circuit 2 being based in a city metropolis was to be a contrast to the first movie, which was filmed in Astoria, Oregon, with many of the locations looking more isolated. In fact, in the late 80s and early 90s, this was something of a sequel trend, where the action would be taken to the big city, especially if the action in the first movie took place in a quieter place, which is why we got movies like Jason Takes Manhattan, Predator 2, Gremlins 2, Home Alone 2, and Poltergeist 3.
So really, Short Circuit 2 was part of a sequel gimmick at that time. That was all about taking the action to the big city.
Number 6. The Trials and Dilemmas of Johnny Five. In order to bring everyone's favourite robot Johnny Five to life on the big screen for Short Circuit 2, a total of 5 Johnny robots were used for the filming. So the part wasn't played by one single robot, but 5 of them. However, cold and wet weather during the filming really interfered with the mechanics of the Johnny Five robots, and would cause malfunctions with their hydraulics and electrical systems. And on one occasion, one of the Johnny Five robots literally short-circuited. Get it? Just like the title of the movie, where it was engulfed in smoke. And what really spooked out the production was the fact that the Johnny robot that short-circuited was literally the 5th Johnny robot prop. As in Johnny Five.
Nah, man. Nah. That's some unsolved mystery shit right there.
Number 5. Mysterious name change. So as mentioned, the main human character in Short Circuit 2 is now the Ben character, who after being fired from Nova Robotics has now started his own street business called Titanic Toy Corporation, where he now makes robotic toys, ones that look like Johnny Five. However, there's something very odd going with the Ben character's name, as in the first movie, the character was called Ben Jabatuya, whereas in the sequel, he's now called Ben Javeri, and there is no reason given to why the character now has a completely different last name. Okay, I'm guessing that this is a goof, and that Short Circuit 2 had different writers that didn't work on the first movie, and thus no one kept them up to speed on the character's last name. Except one problem with that theory, that being that both Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2 had the same writers, those being S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock. So I guess we can conclude that they forgot their very own character's last name. Either that, or there was a reason for the character now having a new name in a deleted scene.
I guess this is the kind of situation where it's up to the audience to fill the blanks. My guess is he changed his name on a business capacity, as not to be connected with Nova Robotics, and so no one would know that he was fired.
Number 4. Short Circuit 2 may not be as unpopular as people believe. I think that when it comes to the Short Circuit movies, a common perception is that the first movie is a sci-fi comedy classic, whereas the second one is just a crappy sequel, a sentiment shared by its 38% score on Rotten Tomatoes. But was the movie really that bad? Yes, it did have its detractors, like the New York Times, which described it as being as much fun as wearing sneakers to anyone over the age of 6. However, Short Circuit 2 did also get lots of praises. Everyone's favourite old school critics, Siskel and Ebert, both gave the movie thumbs up and felt that this sequel was in fact better than the first movie, with Ebert finding it pleasant and entertaining, and Siskel adding that it had moments which generally made him laugh out loud, and that he was so invested in the movie he felt bad when Johnny Five was being attacked. The Los Angeles Times felt that Johnny Five feels more alive this time round, and that the writers, Wilson and Maddock, have definitely improved their craft. Heck, the movie was even nominated for 2 Saturn Awards, one for Best Special Effects, and the other for Best Science Fiction Film. Now I know what you're probably thinking, maybe all that hype was past tense. Well, no, as Short Circuit 2 would go on to get a really epic Blu-ray release with awesome artwork, as well as a poster, postcards, and an 80-page book fully dedicated to Short Circuit 2. Wow, whoever was behind this release really loved Short Circuit 2, in order for them to craft this collector's piece and all the care and attention that was put into it. And so there must have been an audience for this, right? So what do you guys think? Has Short Circuit 2 been unfairly judged with the passing of time? Number 3, title change. Originally, Short Circuit 2 didn't just have the name Short Circuit 2, but it actually had a subtitle, as the intended name for the movie was Short Circuit 2 More Input, as you can see here with this early promotional production photo. The title was indeed Short Circuit 2 More Input. In fact, an early unused poster also referred to Short Circuit 2 as Short Circuit 2 More Input. In fact, I actually really like this illustrated poster of Johnny Five chillaxing by a pool, living the good life. I find it to be a lot of fun, but I guess it doesn't really go with the whole theme of Johnny Five now being in the city, which of course led to the poster we got. But, meh, I actually prefer this early poster. Regardless, the title was subsequently changed to simply being Short Circuit 2, so I guess it's Short Circuit 2, only now with less input. Number 2, Johnny Five did actually return for a sequel. Okay, it's been suggested that a Short Circuit 3 was on the cards, so to speak, but didn't end up getting made due to the box office performance of Short Circuit 2. Over the following years, there have been rumours of a reboot, one that's going to have a more serious tone. Yeah, imagine that. Short Circuit, the dark and gritty reboot. But thus far, nothing has happened, and it seems that Johnny Five's last on-screen adventure was in Short Circuit 2. Well, technically that's not true. In 1991, a 23-minute long educational film came out called Auto Theft, Hot Cars, Cold Facts, and the informative short film is all about teaching viewers how to prevent car theft and steps that can be taken to prevent it. The video was made by the Californian Justice Department in response to a rise of car thefts. In the video itself, none other than Johnny Five turns up because his car was stolen. And that right there is comedy gold. I don't know why the idea of Johnny Five having a car and then having it stolen fills me with the LOLs, but it just does. So a police officer called Lisa tries to teach Johnny Five about organised car theft rings and even takes him on a stakeout. Yeah, Johnny Five on a stakeout. Once again, this is comedy gold. It's like watching Cops, but with Johnny Five turning up. The video ends with Lisa giving Johnny Five a long lecture about securing his car and taking responsibility, all while her car is being stolen right behind her. Wow, in broad daylight too. These guys must be some pretty brazen thieves. Yeah, look, it's a funny little product of its time, and the added presence of Johnny Five makes it cute and like an obscure chapter in pop culture. Number 1, its box office performance short-circuited. Short Circuit 2 was released in July 1988, and sadly it was a box office disappointment, only making $21.6 million on a $15 million budget, only bringing in a $6.6 million profit, which is quite a drop compared to the first movie's box office intake of $40 million, with Short Circuit 2 becoming the 45th highest grossing movie of 1988. So, why the significant drop? Well, maybe people were just put off by the lack of Steve Guttenberg and Ali Sheedy. Maybe people were content with the first movie and didn't feel like they needed to see any more adventures with Johnny Five. Maybe the marketing wasn't all that great. Or maybe people were too busy going to see Die Hard instead, which also came out in July 1988. Supposedly, as a promotion for Short Circuit 2, some movie theatres were selling tickets to see Short Circuit 2 along with the movie Willow, as a double bill for the price of one single movie ticket. Heck yeah, an afternoon of watching Short Circuit and Willow? I would have been down for that. But regardless, a cinematic hit, Short Circuit 2 was not. Although I do believe the original Short Circuit movie is the better movie, and that I do miss the presence of Guttenberg and Sheedy in the sequel, I do still think that Short Circuit 2 is a fun movie that carries on the adventure. Okay, we're not talking Terminator 2 or Dark Knight levels of sequel here, but it's still charming and enjoyable, and is definitely slightly edgier than its predecessor. So if you love the first movie, then I still think there is plenty for you to enjoy in Short Circuit 2.
Yeah, it's a fun, silly, harmless sequel that's worth checking out if you like the first Short Circuit. And I think that about wraps everything up. I've got nothing else to say and I really want to end the video. So, I'm Minty, and yes, I know some of you might be disappointed that a Short Circuit reboot hasn't happened, but look on the bright side. At least Disney doesn't own the rights. Ugh. See ya!